Hello my strange and charmed ones, and welcome back to my channel for another installment of my Plan Like an Entrepreneur series. For today's video, I thought I would switch things up a bit because for the last few installments of this series, we've been focusing on actually seeing me do some planning in the beginning of the video, and then I moved to like a Q&A at the second half of the video. But today I wanted to do things a little bit differently and just switch things up from what I'm regularly doing, just to make sure you guys aren't getting bored of the same old stuff. And today I thought I would make a dedicated video discussing a very important aspect of planning that I know I get a lot of comments on in my videos and even in my day-to-day life, people who know me and work with me on a regular basis. So today's video is actually going to be on the topic of focus and the overall topic of getting things done. Now, before I begin, I just wanted to make a little side note that today is Sunday, March 15th. And if you guys, some of you may already be familiar that Friday the 13th was my birthday. And I just wanted to take a moment to thank everybody who had sent me like birthday messages. I did get a lot of comments on my photos on Instagram on my birthday. I got some Facebook messages. I got some comments on YouTube. So I just wanted to say a sincere thank you to everyone who took a moment out of their day to say happy birthday to me. I really absolutely appreciated hearing from each and every one of you who did reach out. And it really did make my birthday very special this year. So thank you guys so much for that. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump on into this video. In order to help me, I actually took some notes on my new iPhone. This was, if you guys are following me on Instagram, at MissTrenchcoat. You guys know that I did get a new iPhone for my birthday. It wasn't time for me to upgrade or anything like that. I had to like buy this like flat out. But I did get the iPhone 6 Plus in silver, 64 gigs of memory, and this is like a monster of a phone. So I do have a couple of notes and things on here that I want to use in order to help me keep my ideas straight for this video. So if you see my phone popping in and out of screen, I apologize. I just want to make sure that I'm being as clear as possible in this video. Okay, so like I said, the topic of this video is going to be focus. And I chose the topic of focus because I've actually been receiving a lot of messages and a lot of comments lately, not just from people in my community online, but also from like friends of mine and people who work with me, telling me that they think that I've got an incredible amount of focus and that I really have like a high level of execution that they're impressed by. Now, obviously, like as an entrepreneur, I don't think there's like any higher compliment that you can be paid than to say like, hey, you're really effective, you're really good at getting things done and staying focused. So I really appreciate it when people say things like that to me. But I also feel like it's not something that I have a monopoly on by any means. And I think that there is really a lot of discipline. Someone had said that in a comment on YouTube and it really stuck out to me. There's a lot of discipline that kind of goes behind having a high level of focus. And I thought I would talk about that with you guys today because really when it comes to not just running a business and being an entrepreneur, but even in your own life, if you just, work a normal 9 to 5, or if you're a stay-at-home mom, or if you have a job and you have kids and you have other like sort of extracurriculars, or if you're a student and you're working, anyone that has a lot of things going on in their life could really benefit from a discussion about focus and really how to sort of establish focus. So that is what I want to make the topic of today's video. Now, the first thing that I want to make clear is that I personally don't feel like I'm as focused and as productive as I think other people are making me out to be when they give me these compliments and, pay me these compliments that they think I'm very focused. However, I think that maybe that's like an internal thing with me, that I just have really high standards. I really do believe that this is really an accessible thing. Being focused is something that you definitely need to learn, and it's definitely something that I have to focus on. I have to actually put effort on remaining focused on things that are important to me. And even though I might not be as productive as I would like to be ideally, I do realize and I do recognize that I am a productivity guru right? And you guys spend a lot of time watching my videos, trying to learn from me. So I really take that bond between us very seriously. So I just want to make sure that I'm giving you guys the best tips that I have. Also, I'm hoping that these tips will also help you. Okay, so first and foremost, like I already mentioned, I really believe that focus is something that you constantly need to be working on in order to really develop it as a skill. I really do think it's a skill, the ability to turn on and off from work quickly and efficiently, and to be able to really zero in on things that are important. I definitely think these are skills for sure. This isn't just something that some people are born with. These are skills that are definitely learned. But for me, I also find that one of the most key elements to being as productive and focused as possible is actually tip number one is to have some sort of role model in your life that you're kind of using as an example for how productive you want to be. Now, personally, my role model is someone that you guys may know, Lisa Marie from Paper and Glam, my blogging BFF. I know we just did a swap together, and you guys may already be familiar with her and her channel, but personally, to be completely honest, ever since Lisa Marie and I have connected, I've really looked up to her as a role model for productivity because, to be completely honest, that girl does so much. I do not understand how she can get everything done in a day. And I know that if she were sitting here talking to you, she would probably say the same thing I did, which is that she doesn't think she's as productive as she could be, and she probably would be hard on herself as well. But the truth of the matter is that girlfriend's got a lot going on. Like, she has a full-time 9-to-5 job, and she works on her Paper and Glam business on the side, and she has a ton of social commitments and community commitments. So for me, I look at her and I look at the way she manages her schedule, and I'm just constantly in awe. So I really think it's important, for first and foremost, for you to have someone that you'd like to role model off of. This could be some sort of mentor, but one of the things I want to point out is that I think that this person should be accessible to you. So I don't want to say, choose someone like Oprah Winfrey or someone like Ariana Huffington, who are really wonderful women who are obviously very productive and successful. But I think it's really important that these role models be accessible to you, because I think that there is a lot to be learned from one-on-one interaction. So pick someone to be your role model that you actually have access to, so that you can pick their brain the way that I've been able to pick Lisa Marie's brain on how she stays productive. Okay, so once you have a role model for the type of productivity and the sort of productive lifestyle you'd like to have so that you remain more focused, the next thing that I have to say is that focus really comes down to a really good understanding of your priorities in life and the way that you prioritize things. Now, for me, prioritization really comes down to two things. First is values, and the second is expectations. Now, values are obviously the things in your life that are important to you, almost like the intangibles, right? So for me personally, my values, or I should say like the things that I value in a particular order, are first and foremost myself, and my spiritual and physical health and well-being. That's number one for me. Number two is my family, which would be Mike and Starbuck. Number three is my business and sort of my online community. And then after that, I would say is probably, the greater community outside of my door, and extended family and things like that. So those are my priorities and the way that I prioritize them. But obviously those priorities will change by the person, right? So I think that that's really important that you understand what your values are so that you can understand the things that you're prioritizing. Now, for each of those values, I do have a certain expectation of myself. So let's go ahead and just use my business. Specifically, let's talk about my content creation, because that's something I do get a lot of questions about. Now, for myself, since my content creation is a really big part of my business, which is a pretty high priority on my list, I have a set of expectations for the things that I need to get done within a week. Now, first of all is obviously my blog, my website, which I do have the expectation that I'm going to update that 3 days a week. So you guys may have seen in previous planning videos that, I like to post on my blog on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays. And sometimes I actually have more to say and I have more to share, and I'll add in extra posts throughout the week. But those are my bare minimum. And those have been my bare minimum for a very long time. And because I prioritize that, I have not missed that. I can't think of the last time I missed doing 3 days a week, unless there was something going on. But for the most part, that has been my schedule for like the last, I think like at least the last 2 years has to be to post Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday. So yes, there's a lot of discipline that comes with, sticking to a plan like that. But the fact that that is a priority to me means that it's something that's a must do on my list every week. Okay, so more of my expectations related to my content creation. So let's talk about YouTube, right? So my expectation currently for my YouTube channel is that I will post 2 days a week, Sunday, and it looks like my second day of the week has been Wednesday. So that's something that's also really important to me. For the most part, I try very hard to make sure I'm posting twice a week. I know that sometimes I change this schedule up, but I've been pretty consistent in the last few weeks that I post on Sundays and on Wednesdays. So that is something, again, where it's my priority. This is my job. This is what I do. I have to make sure that I'm creating this content and making sure that I get this done throughout the week because it's something that's very important to me. Now, in terms of my expectations for other social media, Instagram is a place where I'm very active. And if you're not currently following me on Instagram, make sure to follow me at MissTrenchcoat because I'm very active on Instagram. And my expectation for Instagram is that I will post an image most days of the week. I really do try to post something every day, but sometimes it just doesn't happen. And because Instagram is not as much of a priority as my blog and my YouTube are, sometimes, the days get busy and it gets written off of my list. But my expectation is that I will post to Instagram at least once most days. So those are my main expectations for my content creation throughout the week. And in order to get those things done, I make sure that I've scheduled time out to actually do those things because they are important. A lot of times I try to get my blog posts done at the beginning of the week and the images for them and just start to get those processed earlier in the week so that, I have my content going up. I always like to schedule my content. For the most part, my blog is 99.9%. It has been scheduled ahead of time. I never actually post live. It's never a situation where I'm writing a blog post and scrambling to get it up. All of my blog posts have been done previously and scheduled to go up at a specific day and time. And to some extent also my YouTube channel as well. Sometimes I do like to pre-record my videos and put them up and schedule them for a certain day. That pretty much depends on the way that work manages itself out and things like that. But I hope that this example of my own content creation expectations, right, has given you some sort of insight into the way that you need to prioritize things that are important and things that you value within your life. So the interesting thing about priorities is that they really aren't that difficult to manage until they begin to compete for your time, right? That's when we really run into issues. So this is where I think that people have a hard time because it's all about striking a balance between competing priorities. So I've really quickly put together 5 key tips for how to strike a balance with your priorities. And I'm going to go ahead and list those right now. So get your pen and papers ready because these are going to be really key tips for you. Number 1 is to stay on top of your work. So like I said earlier when I was explaining my content creation, one of the things that's really important to me is making sure that I'm posting 3 times a week to my blog. And in order to do that successfully and make sure that I'm doing that successfully week after week, it's really important for me to stay on top of my work. I do try to get as much done as I can throughout the week and make sure that I'm really maximizing my time. And I really, when it comes down to it, when I do have problems and I do have conflicts of time and conflicts of priorities, I really have to look and see what is important and what work really means the most to me so that I can stay on top of it. Because when you don't stay on top of it, when you push things off, that's usually when you get into a lot of problems with balancing your work. Tip number 2 is to build free time into your week. Now, when I say this, I mean to literally have time scheduled out throughout the week where you have literally nothing to do, so that you can really spend that time however you need to, either playing catch up on other projects that need to get done, or for brainstorming and planning out future projects. Now, this is something that I do regularly. I would say that I probably give myself a nice chunk of 2 days during the week where I either catch up on projects that kind of have fallen to the wayside and maybe like little details that sort of just got caught up in processing. And I also spend a really good amount of time literally researching and brainstorming and planning future content and future projects for my work. So I think this is really important because when your day and your life is all constantly filled, like scheduled from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to sleep, and you have no built-in free time, you really don't have a safety net. So I really highly suggest that you build in time to your week, and it doesn't have to be every day. It doesn't have to be 2 days a week. It could be 1 day a week, but just have that time allotted, whether it's an hour once a week or maybe it's 30 minutes every day. Have some sort of regular schedule where you can say this time is allotted for me to do what I need to make sure I've got my priorities in order. Tip number 3 is to be clear about your expectations to those around you. So that means friends and family and work and clients or anyone that you interact with on a daily basis who may need to be aware of your schedule and your expectations. I particularly think this is important for working families, working mothers and working fathers, to really make sure that you're clear on your expectations with your boss at work, because I'm sure many of you would rank your job and your family as probably the highest priorities in your life, because clearly family is number one to a lot of people. But also having that job so that you can support your family is obviously incredibly important. So you really need to make sure that you're having those sorts of conversations with your superiors and people that you work with, so that when it comes down to, competing priorities between work, like let's say you've got some sort of late or extra event at work that maybe conflicts with your child's recital, or maybe like a soccer game. This stuff happens all the time. But I feel like when you're not upfront and clear about your expectations, that's when people start to get angry, and that's when really problems develop, especially if you are a very busy working parent that also has a high stress or very busy job, right? You may feel like you've gotten yourself in trouble a few times for, having to call out sick because your child's sick, or having to flake out on an event, or maybe you feel like you have to flake out on your kid too much. Really make sure that you've got those expectations worked out with people who need to know them. And tip number 4 is that balance doesn't mean sticking to your priorities 100%, but it's about knowing that when you have to put more focus into one part of your life, that you then need to compensate and give extra attention to another area that's lacking. So going back to that business and family example, if you know that you've got a really important project at work and you've been upfront with your spouse and your family about it, that you're going to need to be working late, and you may need to hire a babysitter a few nights, or you may need your spouse to help with the laundry and dinner and things like that they might not normally do. It's very important that you make it clear that once this project is over at work, you are going to tip the scales back, maybe have some sort of family night, or relieve your spouse in one way or another, maybe give them a free night to do whatever they need to do, and you're going to basically pick up the slack for a little bit, basically to balance out so that things are fair. Because I think a lot of people have a lot of trouble with this, that they will spend that extra time in one area of their life that needs it, but then when that project or whatnot is over and they go back to normal, they don't make the extra effort to go ahead and spend a little extra time in that area that was suffering during that period of busyness at work. So make sure that you are, balancing the scales and managing your priorities so that everybody is being treated fairly. Now, tip number 5 is, if things do get overwhelming for you, be honest, ask for help, and reevaluate your system. So I think that this is such an important tip, right? To when it comes down to prioritization and really staying focused, is that if something is coming up and you're really getting overwhelmed, don't feel like you need to do it alone and don't feel like you need to power through it. You may need to stop, take a look at what you're doing, ask for help, see if you can get some extra help with something, maybe through your spouse or friends or family. Raise your hand and say to the people around you, hey, I need help. Can someone help me through this? There's really no benefit to lying to yourself and lying to other people. So really get honest about your situation, ask for help, tell people what you need, and accept that help from them. And then once it's all said and done, you really need to take a really good look at your system and see what happened. Where was the breakdown? Were you not prioritizing your work earlier? Like I said, like in tip number 1, were you not on top of your work? Is that what happened? Were you not clear about expectations to other people? Where was the breakdown? You really need to reevaluate your system and see what went wrong so that you learn from it and move forward. So those are my 5 tips for balancing your priorities and specifically competing priorities. So I really think that when you get a grasp of these specific concepts, that it really will make focusing on your work much easier, because I just find that I think people get really caught up and are unable to focus because they really can't make a choice, usually because they have competing priorities or they're not sure what their priorities are. So get straight with your priorities. Write down what your values are and what the order is for those values, and make sure that you've got expectations for what those values mean, how you're actually going to be acting upon those values in your daily and weekly life. Once you've gotten those straight and you've communicated those expectations to everyone around you, stay with those tips that I gave you and you should be really good to go on being focused. So those are my tips on staying focused and getting things done. I hope that this was a valuable video for you guys. Please, if it was, make sure to share it in your social media feeds. Don't be afraid to throw this in your Facebook groups or, put it up on your Facebook page or tweet it out. I would absolutely love to see you guys sharing this because I think that this is a really important topic. And I'm just going to go out on a limb here and say that I really think that women as a whole tend to have a little bit of trouble with this focus and priorities situation. And I think it really is because women tend to really bear the brunt of having a lot of different priorities between jobs and working and friends and family. There's so much that I think falls onto our shoulders. And I'm definitely not even someone who has a family yet. I don't have any children. So I can only imagine how this gets even more complicated once children and bigger families get thrown into the mix. So really, make sure that you're sharing this with people who are important and make sure you're acting on these tips because I really think that they are the key to getting focused and really getting things done. And I think you're going to surprise yourself with how productive you're going to be able to be once you put these things in order. Go ahead and leave me a comment down in the description box and let me know what you thought about this video. I really want to know if it's helping you guys. And of course, if you have any other questions or suggestions for future videos within this series or any other future videos, leave those down in the comments as well. If this video was helpful, make sure you give it a like. I know it's probably going to end up being a longer video, but I think this was an important topic that we really needed to talk about. So I hope you enjoyed it and I hope you will give it a thumbs up. And of course, if you are an aspiring businesswoman or entrepreneur, make sure to check out my Empire Building program. It is my new coaching program dedicated to helping budding creatives and entrepreneurs really get their online business off the ground. So I'll make sure to leave a link down in the description box where you can get more information about my Empire Building program. And of course, if you are not yet subscribed to my channel, what are you waiting for? Click that subscribe button for more awesome videos by me. Thank you guys so much for watching and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye!